Welcome to the Books Between Friends podcast.
3 lifelong friends,
one shared obsession.
Books.
From epic fantasy to page-turning thrillers.
We dive into the stories we love
and the ones we just can't stop talking about.
So take a seat,
grab a drink,
and get cozy. Welcome back, friends. We're so excited to dive into our next book today. We're diving into the first 6 chapters of Onyx Storm, including the prologue. If you didn't catch our episodes on Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, be sure to listen to that first, then join us for the much anticipated Onyx Storm. Speaking of cozy, what is your cup of cozy today? I am drinking Pinot Noir out of a Dragon Claw wine glass.
That is very cozy, what with the dragon claws and all. I am drinking a lovely cup of Texas pecan coffee from H-E-B. Nice. With a little bit of Irish cream alcohol added to it to make it a little bit more adult-like. But I am drinking it out of my lovely mug that is very bookish, my Harry Potter mug, that it changes into the houses of Harry Potter when you fill it with a warm liquid.
Cool.
Okay, and then I'm just going to be boring today. I'm drinking water out of my Barbie Stanley.
But the Barbie Stanley makes it. It makes it.
Just trying to stay
Hey,
hydrated.
I broke my no wine during the week rule for you two, and you're not drinking wine.
But Irish cream.
Okay, fine. Ethan is fine. I forgive Ethan, but I do not forgive Stephanie.
I'll deal with that.
Steph.
You're like, meh.
Well, we are very excited to finally discuss Onyx Storm. We are here. We've made it. We've recapped Fourth Wing. We've recapped Iron Flame. And now we are here in real time discussing Onyx Storm. This has been a long time coming, right? She released the first 2 fairly close to each other and then made us wait incredibly long for Onyx Storm, but it's here. We're excited to discuss with each other, and we're just excited to hear what you all have to say as well.
Yay! So before we get started, friends, fair warning, if you're listening to this episode, we're assuming that you've read from the prologue through chapter 6 of Onyx Storm. So if you haven't yet, go back and read those before you listen to this episode. Before diving into Onyx Storm, let's quickly recap where we left off at the end of Iron Flame. The battle against the venin at Basgiath has just ended, but not without devastating consequences. We learned that Andarna is actually a 7th breed of dragon, and the key they were missing to raise the wards against venin. Violet nearly burned herself out trying to imbue the ward stone after Jack fucking Barlow shattered it. And while Brennan managed to mend it, General Sorengale actually chose to sacrifice herself to raise the wards and save Violet. Heartbreaking. And then there's Xaden. In a desperate attempt to save Violet when he felt her burning out, he made the unthinkable choice of channeling power from the Earth's source, turning himself into a venin. So now it's only a matter of time before Orisha's wards fail, and Violet is facing 2 impossible tasks. Finding the rest of Andarna's kind to restore the wards, and figuring out how to save Xaden before he loses his soul completely. Okay, so now let's dive in and start with our first impressions. Ethan, what did you think about these first few chapters?
Oh, these first few chapters are action-packed, to say the least. I was so excited that this book is finally here. And first, just shout out to the title alone, because it's Onyx Storm, which made me think, took me way back personally for high school. Instead of a high school class ring, I chose to get Onyx. So my high school ring was actually Onyx. So it made me think of that. But anyway,
that is actually so cool.
Right. So since there had been some time for me personally between reading Iron Flame and this book, I was a little nervous about picking it up, thinking that my memory might be a little foggy. And sure enough, I did have a little bit of trouble remembering some of the minor characters that were mentioned right at the beginning. But it didn't last too long. And I think that's just because of the fast-paced nature that it sets out with, right? We immediately pick up on the first, even in the prologue. There's no time to just dilly-dally. But I loved it, especially with what you were saying, that it really does set out with those two journeys that Violet's going to have to take. One to, find the cure, the other to find the, seventh breed of dragon, right? And Darna's family, basically. So I love a quest. And those are two major quests that have to happen for Violet, I think. But yeah, those were my first impressions. Jen, what did you think?
Oh man, I have been waiting for this book for so long, over a year. I mean, I honestly, that's all I could think about. And I probably bullied my friends way too much trying to get people to read this story just so I could talk to someone about it while I
I
waited for
can
Onyx
confirm
Storm.
she personally victimized me and pressured me.
Yes, I would
I
raise
just
my hand with the personal victimization from Jen.
I just really wanted to talk to someone. Anyways, when Onyx Storm came out, I drove through a snowstorm. Okay, it was a Texas one, but still, I still drove through one to go to the midnight release for Onyx Storm. So I was really excited. When I started to read it, I actually remember feeling very just jittery and anxious. I was like, oh my God, I have the book. It's in my hands. I just want all the answers now, especially with the way it ended. Because poor Xaden, like I've mentioned it before, he is one of my favorite characters. And for him to be like, I know he's going to be facing a lot in this book. And so I was just jittery and anxious to know what was going to happen. But I knew it was going to take some time to build up to that, especially with two books after this. So I was like, okay, deep breath. Remember, it's just a story. And I started over. I really enjoyed the first few chapters, though. It started off like really intense. The prologue, oof, can't wait to get into that. But yeah, before moving on and seeing what Steph thought, I just wanted to take a moment and appreciate Rebecca Yarros's dedication to the book. And it read, to the ones who don't run with the popular crowd, the ones who get caught reading under their desk, the ones who feel like they never get invited, included, or represented, get your leathers. We have dragons to ride. I love that she put that on there because I know growing up, I wasn't the most popular. I didn't go out to parties. I really did prefer to stay home as much as I could. And honestly, I do that now as an adult. Like if it comes to the weekend, I'm looking forward to just having hours where I can sit on the couch and read. So I loved her dedication. Steph, what were your first impressions of these first few chapters?
Yeah, same. I mentioned in the first episode, I think that I've been waiting to start this series so I wouldn't have to wait too long in between Iron Flame and Onyx Storm. And I knew I would love these books instantly because dragons, duh. And they didn't disappoint. So I was actually on a book ban at the end of last year because I had gotten a little bit carried away buying too many books and I needed to get through my TBR. But I actually allowed myself to pre-order this book because technically my book ban ended at the end of 2024 and the book didn't release until January. So, rationalizing.
Right.
And I just really wanted to get my hands on this book as soon as possible. So, same as Jen and Ethan, I was just anxious to find out what happened next, what happened to Xaden. I needed all the answers ASAP.
I can probably say it's my fault that you have such a long TBR because I've been pushing you to read so many books. Hey, look,
Potentially,
I was
yeah.
unemployed for 7 months. I needed somebody to talk books with. Okay. So now we're going to get into our deep dive of the next six chapters. I cannot wait to get into this. And like I mentioned before, like that prologue was such a strong start. Like it was just, I could feel Xaden and Violet's desperation, just like the book really jumps off really right after the battle was over. And so Xaden is like trying to get answers from Jack Barlow right after he channels, like desperate to find a cure for what he did. And so I love that it starts off with Violet's mission, knowing like, I need to save him. I need to save him. And so that just, I mean, she's determined to find a cure before he loses himself completely. And then honestly, like one thing I really do want to talk about is the way Darna talks about her magic and the way like her skills were changing. And she mentions it right in the prologue where she says, I felt a change in my magic when I changed skills. And so she kind of gives Violet that hope where she says, I think I'm the cure to venin. I think I'm the answer to this. And she says it herself. She's like, we'll find a cure, and on our promises, we'll exhaust every closer resource first. But if I'm right and I somehow alter that venin inadvertently while changing my skills, then the rest of my kind should know how to master the tactic, how to change him, how to cure him. Like that to me was just like, yes, we need hope in this story. What do you guys think?
Definitely. Yeah. So I also kind of latched on to that conversation between Andarna and Violet while she was following him down to Jack's cell. And yeah, I feel like this is a little bit of foreshadowing. I feel like her two major goals, you know, curing Xaden and finding the seventh are inevitably going to converge. And I think Andarna's right. There's something there to how her fire or her magic can alter venin and defeat them. So maybe there's something there. Obviously, right now I don't know what that is or how we're going to get to that path, but yeah. Ethan, what do you think?
Well, I immediately same, right? I latched on to that conversation as well. Specifically the part where magic feels different when I change color.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Yeah.
like, ooh, that made me like, because I was like, well, what if her breed gives definition to why there are different colored dragons? Like, does each
Mm.
dragon
Mm,
have like a different ability, maybe, right? Like, and maybe her breed has like a rainbow of abilities. So, like, she says she can feel it when it changes color. So, like, you're going to change color to, red, black, whatever. Like, what does that
mm,
mean for your ability?
yeah.
So that's kind of what, and it could be nothing, right? That could be completely off the mark, but that's what it made me think of. And I was like, that would be really cool if we went down that storyline.
Hmm.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that. Like my only thing that I latched on to was the fact that she was just so hopeful that they were
Yeah.
going to get more answers. And like, I mean, I feel the desperation of wanting to cure Xaden, and I'm not even there. So, so
Yeah.
I love that. I love that she has Endarna for that because I know Taryn, like he's not on board as far as like Violet being there for Xaden, and so I'm just so glad she has Endarna. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, oh, like this book started off with a bang. Honestly, though, the way Iron Flame ended, like I'm kind of glad it jumps right into where they ended with the battle because I didn't want there to be a lot of like build up. I mean, I feel like the first two books did a really great job of building up to where we are now. And
Yeah.
the fact that like it starts off with boom, there's already venom inside, there's already a threat inside Biscaya and her
Hmm.
friends finding that out right away, like just I, I love that it immediately jumped to action. Like this book is going to be, I feel like, so action filled.
Automatically, right at the prologue, we start talking about the cure, and I
Mm-hmm.
know, I know that's important, right? Like we all want the cure, we all want the cure, as Violet especially wants the cure. But I was like, I'm already feeling her going off of the cure is going to be like full disclosure was, and I like
Yeah.
it's going to annoy the hell out of me, even though I want it to. Like, I want it for her, I want it for him, I want it to happen. But the cure, the cure, the cure. I was like, oh, already so many times. I was like, take a shot every time you hear the cure.
I don't know that it's going to
Totally.
annoy me. I think the full disclosure thing annoyed me so much because she just was being so stubborn and hard-headed when it came to like that. Like she wasn't putting herself in his shoes when it came to the
Yeah.
reasons why he was keeping those secrets. But like this one, I'm just like I said, I'm just as desperate to find the cure. So I think every time
Hmm.
she says cure, I'm like, yes, girl, like you better be fighting for his cure right now. Like I need
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. Also, I found it refreshing how like determined she is for the cure because again, she I feel like has been given Xaden a hard time up until this point, and now she's just like all in supporting him and is not giving up on him. And like he's going to need that. I'm kind of fearful for him a little bit. I feel like he tends to spiral and like distance himself.
Oh,
And I think it's happening, which worries me.
Well, I
So,
think,
she's probably gonna have to be strong for the both of them to
yeah.
get through this somehow, some way.
No, I
The
think you're
way,
totally right because up until this point, he's been the solid foundation. He's been the rock where she
Mhm,
gets to be a little,
Yeah.
dark and twisty and she
mhm.
and she spirals out of control a lot of the time.
Right. Yeah.
But now the tables have kind of flipped and now it's his turn to kind of show how he acts in a situation where he's not in control. Like he
Hmm.
literally is not in control anymore. He had his moment of being in control and he chose to channel from the source, right? So that was his choice and now he's having to deal with the consequences that are very much out of his control.
So I was really shocked that they even wanted to freaking break out Jack Barlow. Like, is he really that important? I mean, honestly, like it's Jack freaking Barlow. He's kind of in the beginning, or maybe he's kind of in the middle stages now. I don't know how long he's been venin for, but the
Hmm.
fact that there are venin inside of Basquiat really does raise a lot of questions for me. And the fact that like
Yeah.
when Violet brought it up to kind of leadership to tell them what happened, they just seemed super unfazed about it. And I'm just like, what's going on? Why are
Right.
we not more worried about the fact that there are venin walking among us? Because I know that
Hmm.
when the squad went to go visit Sawyer at the infirmary, like they found one that was dressed as a scribe. And so they followed the scribe that they followed that
Well,
venin
that was after
down.
they had snuck into the infirmary and drained everybody that was
Yes,
there.
everybody. And that's it. But that's another question I have. Like, if the wards are up, how did they drain them?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I
So,
thought that that
like,
meant that like when you were behind wards, you couldn't drain or channel. Is that am
right.
I wrong in that?
Allegedly, that's the thing is like there is something here that everybody in leadership seems to be just glossing over like it's nothing and not really addressing. And like, how do they even know to get into the walls? Like someone on the
There's a
inside is
mole.
helping them, right?
Yeah.
They've got
Yeah.
someone or someone's, there's a whole network. And I said this in the last episode. This is one of my theories. I feel like this network of venin in Biscayeth, it like that is just the tip of the iceberg. I feel like it goes all the way up to King Tari.
I mean, you might not be off, honestly, because there has to be a way they're getting inside. Because I mean, they've
Yeah.
been patrolling after this whole battle, like they've been patrolling trying to look for the venin, and they haven't been able
Hmm.
to find any. And even Riddick said he was like, "Did we get them all?" And that's
Well,
exactly
they
whenever they ran
have,
into it.
but they have found some, but Xaden's been the one finding them because he can sense them. So like, and we'll get into this later, I guess, but
Yes.
actually no, we can't get into this right now.
Well, I was gonna say that when they follow the venin into the cell and they're trying to like break out Jack Barlow, that's when I'm like, why are
Yeah, like
you
why
interested in getting
him?
Jack? Like, are they really that invested in all the
I
venin
feel like
that
he's still an initiate, right?
I thought he was?
Yeah.
Well, so that's, I mean, it's an important part of it, right? Like that's a big deal. Like whether it's trying to throw us off the scent of something else, right? Like Rebecca Yarros is known to do,
Yeah.
or is he really that important? Because when I think of the Venin, I think of them operating kind of like as a hive mind,
Mm.
and maybe they need Jack Barlow. Like maybe he completes the
Oh.
hive, and they can't really operate to their full function without him.
Hmm.
Um, but I that could be again that could be completely off. No, it's that the Jack Barlow question is very, very interesting, right? Like,
Yeah.
do they
Yeah.
actually need him, or are they trying to use him to get to Xaden or use him to get to Violet, right?
Mm.
Because
Well,
they
okay,
mentioned
so
her
remember,
specifically.
yeah, when
Yeah.
they get down to the cell and there's that silver hair, or actually a few of them mentioned like, oh, it's the silver hair one or something like that.
Hmm.
And so like maybe it was her they were actually looking for. Maybe they were trying to lure her down there to get to her.
Hmm.
But
Right, because
then
they
Xaden comes and
probably,
saves the day.
yeah, because they probably knew that either she or he would come to
Yeah.
Jack Barlow or
Hmm.
both, right? Like that was a perfect lure.
This kind of also lets us know as readers that the venin are much smarter than what I think we gave them credit for in the beginning. Or I don't know if we did just if we discredited them or not. But I know for a fact, like if they're dressing up as scribes and hiding among the scribes or like hiding among the other quadrants, they're a lot smarter and they
Hmm.
think ahead more than what I think we thought. They're not just power hungry. I think they're like they're playing chess while I feel like everybody else is playing checkers, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like
That's a good way to put
the
it.
fact that they even know to disguise themselves as scribes means that they know like the inner workings of this war college,
Right.
you know?
Y'all, I'm
Ooh,
still thinking Brennan.
really?
That is my
I
theory.
don't
And
know.
if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I mean, they have to know the inner workings, right? Like it's
Yeah.
obvious that they do know. And it's obvious, well, it's not, it maybe not be obvious that there is someone on the inside working with them. But I think that's not far off to assume that there
Mm.
is someone on the
Yeah.
inside. And what if that person is Brennan?
But Brendan's not there all the time. I think it's
Yeah.
somebody
He's been
that's
in
similar
Arisha.
to Varish, like Atos, like Dane's dad.
I feel like
Yeah.
that's too obvious.
That is too obvious. I know, and that's why I didn't bring it up before, but I don't know that. But Brendan's not always there, but then he was a writer in the work college, so he does know the inner workings of it. I still choose to think Violet's brother is good, but we shall see down the road. But that also, like the whole thing with Jack Barlow brought up the fact that Xaden confessed something really important to Violet that honestly made me really sad. The fact that he can sense the venin and that's how he knew to go, because obviously he went down there to save her. Like,
Mhm.
when doesn't he save her, right? But like the fact that he could
Well, he didn't
sense
realize she
them.
was down there. He just sensed them.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. He didn't even know she was there. It was
Yeah.
just the other ones that he was able to track down. And
Right.
so, like, that just to me, I mean, it makes him not only a powerful weapon because obviously he can track them and kill them, but it makes him kind of a liability too. Because if he can sense them, then I'm sure they can sense
They
him
can probably
too.
sense him. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's yeah, so that also goes along with the thought process you had, Ethan, about like maybe they're after Xaden for some reason or whatever reason. But also, I don't understand why Xaden is blocking Violet at this point in the story, right? Like she's tried to reach out to him through their bond where they can mentally communicate, and he's just like blocking her out. And I'm not totally understanding why. And that's the reason why he didn't realize that she was in danger and being attacked by venin. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I think he knows just how little control he's starting to have. I mean, he literally said that he could reach the rank of Maven and like lead armies of dark wielders. Like that didn't even phase him enough to say like I can do all that. I can channel all the power in the continent and I would still love you. Clearly we know how much Xaden loves her, but he's showing that he doesn't care about anyone or anything besides Violet. And so I think because of how much he loves her, and because he knows that he cares very little about what he can potentially do to save her, that he's trying to protect her from himself because he knows how little control now he has over what he's willing to do.
I think it's a little bit of a foreshadowing at how far he will actually go
Mm.
to distance himself from her.
Hmm.
Like if he's putting up these barriers already, right? I think eventually he's probably just gonna go off by himself to try
That's what
to
I'm worried
distance
about
himself
too.
even more, right? Yeah, like no one
Yeah.
wants that, but I think this is just a little taste of what's to come, that he's really showing Violet like how far he's willing to go to make sure she's safe from him.
There was a moment too where they were getting intimate and he accidentally channels while they're having their moment, because when they do have their intimate moments, her power does rise, and like she does end up wielding. And so I know that in that moment he like felt it coming, and I'm sure that the minute that power was like there, he had the he had that like sudden urge to
He felt
channel.
it.
And but yeah, no, he like literally forgets that he needs to keep some kind of control around her and ends up channeling. And so
Hmm.
I think from there, seeing how much danger she's in, he ends up like, oh fuck, like I need to keep my arm's length from her and be careful that I don't accidentally drain her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
This
I
is
just feel for him.
also like outside of Xaden and Violet, this is also the chapter like we're towards chapter 3, right? And this is also the chapter where like the negotiations are happening
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's talk politics. I'm so
And
pissed.
I'm like, honestly, I feel like Biscayeth really can't afford to lose Violet. So
Yes.
why are negotiations happening, period? Like you
Right.
meet Violet's demands, you meet Andarna's demands, or they go. Like it's this
Yeah,
simple
it's
to
that
me,
simple.
it's as simple as
Hmm.
that. So like
And if they
I
lose
the
Violet, they lose
negotiations confuse
Xaden.
me. Right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I was feeling the same way. I was just so annoyed at leadership for making the negotiations harder than they need to be. Like at the end of the day, Violet mentions at one point, we all need to unite against the common enemy. And they've all already seen what's coming for them. Why is nobody acting like this is real war? Like shit is getting real. We need to unite.
Right.
Which again makes me think, is that on purpose?
Right.
Yeah.
And also, why does everybody suddenly forget that the freaking Orishan flyers came to save everyone's ass? Like,
Yes.
I am
Right.
so annoyed with that too. It's like you have all these political heads sitting around a table, trying to decide the future of all these people, not taking into account the people who actually saved their asses. And I just hate how much ego gets in the way. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's to say with a lot of politics, right? Not even just the books
Hmm.
politics. Like ego just gets in the way. People don't want to admit that their way is not the only way. And so I was really annoyed, and I still am because even like we'll get more into it as we read more into the chapters, but like that's all they are. It's just trying to make decisions based on what they think is right and literally taking zero things that are happening around them into account.
Right.
I
Or like
mean,
acknowledging that their asses would have been cooked
yes.
if they didn't come and save them from Marisha. Like it's just so frustrating to me, and like the fact that they're pushing back on Violet's demands, that they're not seeing eye to eye on things. And so like Violet really needs to get started on like her two major quests, like the
Mhm.
cure and the seventh kind, right? And this is holding her back. This is like putting a pause on things that when time is running out. Xaden already has accidentally channeled
Mhm.
once at this point, and he's struggling to keep his control. And then we all know that the wards at Arisha are failing, and it's only a matter of time before they completely fail and we lose it all. So,
But remember, nobody knows about the fact that Violet wants to save Xaden. Like they
yeah,
only
yeah.
know the fact that she's also desperate to find Indarna's kind, and they want it too. Because I mean, again, going back to ego, like people like them just want
Hmm.
knowledge. They want to hold on to all the knowledge. Clearly, they held on to so much knowledge and didn't share it. With the venin and the wyvern and like everything that's been going on. But nobody knows that she wants to save Xaden. I mean, literally the only people who know are Imogen, Bodhi, and Garrick, and that's it. Nobody else knows. Not even Violet Squad knows what she's trying to accomplish here. But yeah, you're right. She's desperate to get on with this and having to cut through red tape pretty much, right? It's really annoying to see how frustrating it is to even go through all that. And then the fact that they're trying to dismiss the flyers. The
Yeah.
flyers were a crucial part to getting to where they are now because the flyers have known about the venin forever. They
And
have
they've been
more
fighting
history.
them
Yeah,
for
they have
centuries.
This
yeah,
whole
they
time,
have
yeah.
more history.
Right. And they know how to defeat them, even without wards. Like they've been fighting them in hand-to-hand combat for centuries. And then also, remember back in Iron Flame, Violet made that promise to Takaris
Mm-hmm.
that she would take the flyers to Orisha with her and keep them safe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now we know that the wards at Orisha that she raised are failing. So she needs them to stay in Biscayeth to keep that part of the promise so that she can have access to Karis's library and the knowledge that she might need to either find the cure or the seventh breed. So just the stakes are so high, and all this bureaucracy and red tape is
But I do love that that doesn't slow her down though. Like she knows that she has to keep that promise to Dakars, like you're saying, and she has to keep the flyer safe. And so I love that she works with her sister. Honestly, if we look back to see how much she's supported by people besides Xaden, it's her sister Mira. And honestly, I love Mira.
Yeah.
If I could like come up with a great big sister, it would be Mira. I mean, she's like there helping Violet at every step of the way. And like her where she actually goes out to find a solution to be able to keep the flyers in Biscayeth. And this is
Yeah.
kind of where I want to like, I hope that more gets revealed in these next few chapters about runes because they got brought up in Iron Flame a lot. They help kind of temper and change magic to wield it to where you need it to. But I feel like it's not touched on enough. So I think there's a reason why I really, really hope there's more on runes because I think runes is going to be a big answer to something later because they end up finding a way to keep the flyers there using runes to alter the word stone so that the flyers are able to wield their magic and stay at Biscayet and Violet can keep her promise to Takaris.
Yeah. And okay, so I do want to like backtrack a little bit because the reason the Navarians, sorry, don't want to let the Flyers stay at Biscayeth is because they can't wield under the wards. And the reason they need to be able to wield under the wards is so that they can defend themselves against the riders who want to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
But in my head, I'm so pissed off about that because you could simply just say, all right, kids, that's enough killing each other. No more killing each other. End of story. So again, it makes me feel like the Navarians, for whatever reason, do not want this allyship. Why is that?
I don't understand that either. I mean, again, it goes back to did you guys forget who the fuck saved you guys? Like, did y'all forget
Yeah.
that part?
Yeah. I just think there's an ulterior motive here that they're not being upfront about.
Hmm.
And I think that they're being, I guess, maybe either led by venin or manipulated by venin.
Oh man, just egos, man. Like when you become a freaking dragon rider, like you're the most elite type of person in like Navarre, right? I mean, not anybody can just bond with dragons. And so I think a lot of that goes back to freaking ego and the fact that they cannot accept that there are other people who are also just as good as dragon riders. That's what
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, that's
too.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean,
Because,
I hope it's not just ego, right? Like I hope the characters are a little more complex than just ego. But
True.
if not, if but to your point, like if it is just ego, then man, are those like really good characters to hate. Like it gives you like someone to root against for sure. But yeah, just mentioning the runes again, I love runes, right? I love dragons, I love griffins, and I love a story that has runes.
Yep.
It just intensifies the magic system to me that much more. And I love like a good sacred weapon, right? Like an ancient weapon that can be used. Like all of those things I love. It reminds me a lot of like an RPG video game, right? Like something like Fabled or Dragon Age, and all of those things are in those games. And I love to see them be brought on a page in a book.
The runes are super interesting. I mean, it reminds me of City of Bones series that we read, because that's all they went off of is runes drawn on them, and that's how they got a lot of their power and a lot of their strength and a lot of
Yeah,
their
that is their
abilities.
magic system.
Yeah. And so the fact that it's getting brought in here, I'm like, yes, yes, and yes. Like we need more runes. And I really hope we do get into a deep dive into that. But going back to the tension that we were talking about with the riders and the flyers, like that scene between the Navarian and the Eurasian flyers, like, holy, when I read that, I was like, oh my God, that was a really intense scene, y'all.
this is like one of the first moments where I feel like Violet is finally like stepping into her power and
Yes.
accepting that she's
Yes.
like such a badass, you know? I think that she's kind of like held herself back a little bit up until this point, but at first when they realize that something's about to go down between the Navarians and the Oretians,
Yeah.
she yells for Dane and says, Dane, we need you. And I was so happy to see that without question, he jumped up and ran after her to see what she needed, as a best friend should.
Yeah.
So I'm warming up to Dane a little bit more because of that and more things to come. And I'm really rooting for his complete redemption in this book,
Yep.
hopefully.
Yeah, that scene was incredibly intense. I was like, "Ooh, my blood pressure is rising.
Yeah.
What is going on here?" But
I thought
then
someone was
like
about to die.
I same, right? She says, "Hey, Dane, come." And yeah, he immediately goes. I thought that was a great moment for Dane. I loved that moment. What's really interesting in this part here is, yes, Violet does come into like her badassness, right? Like I think it's like an actual moment, to your point, Steph, like where she does own it, because there's that exchange that she has with Indarna, and she says, "Well, no, Dane's not the strongest, right? Like Dane's not the strongest.
Yeah.
Dane's not the
Yes.
strongest."
She
And
said
then
it
she
multiple
makes it,
times.
yeah, she makes it to where Violet herself has to realize, "Oh, you're right. I'm the
Yeah.
strongest." So
Yeah.
let me just step in here real quick. And also, side note, this girl, Ara, is that her
Ugh,
name?
yes.
Ugh.
Ick,
Aura.
right? Like we
Yeah.
no.
Instantly.
But I wrote down in my lovely journal that I'm keeping, but I wrote down, I was like, she's giving Umbridge energy. Like
Yes.
that is like the character that
Yeah.
I compare a lot of people to in other books. I was like,
Well, we
oh,
need a new
this makes me feel
Umbridge
Umbridge.
because we got rid of our last Umbridge
Right.
in Iron
Yes.
Flame.
Yeah.
So she's a
Yeah. Iron
contender for
Flame.
sure.
Yes, Iron Flame Umbridge is out. Enter Onyx
Yeah.
Storm Umbridge, which is Aura. So yeah, those were the things that really stuck out to me. But the moment where she just claims it, like, no, I'm the strongest.
Yeah.
And that was huge.
And she even reached out for Xaden, and again he's blocking her. And again, Andarna reminded her he's not the strongest. And the whole time she meant you are, Violet. You're the fucking lightning wielder. Like
I don't.
Ara is a fire wielder,
Mhm.
and she challenged Dane. And I mean, Dane's just a memory reader. Like against Ara, he's toast, right? So then, but that moment made her realize, like that moment when someone who is important to her is in danger, like she needs to step into her power and accept that she is the strongest. So that was really cool.
I don't think she was reaching out to Xaden. She was reaching out to Taryn, and Taryn was like, "Well, you got it, right? Okay, cool. Like, I'm not going to interfere." That's what I got from that. I don't remember her reaching out to Xaden.
Okay.
I think he gets brought out, but either way, she does reach
Yeah.
out to Taryn. She's like, "Hey, where are you?" And he was like, "Well, you can handle this, right?" And she's like, "Well," and he's like, "Okay,
Yeah.
you got this."
Yeah, that's
Because at
that's
some
another
point
thing I
when she
wrote down.
started to realize, she was like, oh, Xaden can't fix this.
Yes.
Which I wrote that part down, what Taryn said. He's like, then I trust you can handle it. Like it
Yep.
was just like, duh. Like you've got this. You don't don't
I
doubt
love
yourself, basically.
I
Yeah.
love Taryn. He's the best, honestly. But no, at this point, like her speech killed it. I mean, freaking Aura. Really, honestly, when I was reading this, the only thing I kept thinking about was like freaking bully. She picks on somebody who's a
Yeah.
first year flyer. First of all, knowing that he can't really defend himself against her, a fire wielder. And then, of
Right.
course, tries to go against Atos, who obviously we all know doesn't have like powerful signet like other people do. But I just love that she stepped in and was pretty much, you know what? No, like if you're going to fight someone, you're going to fight someone that's, matched to you. And so
Right.
she brings out her lightning. And I love when she was just like, well, rebel is so outdated. We prefer the term revolutionary. And so she's like, if you're going to wield with someone, then it's me you're going to have to deal with. But her speech to her, like after she pretty much, because she wasn't going to kill her. That's not who Violet is. Violet doesn't do
Yeah.
that. She's not there to hurt people. I think that her knowledge and her words mean more. And so she just pretty much reminded them, like, hey, I'm a badass. Yes, she wielded the lightning just to show that she could. But then she was like, you know what? The only reason that you survived this attack is because that we gained access to this knowledge that Navarre hid from us. We stole it. We translated it. We saved your freaking ass. And that's what I'm so mad that people keep forgetting about. It's like, you guys would have all been dead had it not been for me. And then the ending, like right there at the end, she was like, the riders who came before us fell to protect the innocent just because they were on the other side of our border. They lied and hid. They were the cowards, but we don't have to be. We can choose to stand together and fight. Leadership is locked behind doors right now, trying to forge a treaty, but they're failing, just like every generation before us has failed. And if we do the same, well, you've seen what's out there. Either this alliance begins right here with us, with our generation, or we will be the last dragon riders and griffin flyers on the continent. And I freaking love her for that. I mean, she just reminded them this is beyond more than just you and me. There are forces beyond just us fighting with each other. And if we can't get our shit together, then we're just going to repeat history. And that's what I feel like most people don't understand. It's like they're not seeing the bigger picture. They're trying to bicker among each other. And it's really pissing me off because I'm like, come on, y'all, see the bigger picture. I mean, you just fought it not too long ago. How are you still focusing on these minute things, you know?
Yeah, she's verbalizing everything that we've been saying up until this point. Like, why are negotiations happening? Like, obviously, y'all need Violet more than she needs y'all at this point. And so we're frustrated about that. We're frustrated why people aren't realizing like the Flyers actually saved them, right? And they have a lot to bring to the game because they've been doing this for a lot longer than they have. And so this moment is really Violet just verbalizing everything that as a reader we've been feeling. And like, yes, thank you for finally saying it and putting it into words.
Right. So it was like right after that speech that was it Brennan and Xaden walked in, and then Deborah and Immaterio. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Immaterio. I think that's how I say it in my head.
Okay.
Immaterio, I think. I don't know.
We'll just run with that. Immaterio. So they step in and, disperse everyone. And at this point, Brennan lets them know, okay, negotiations are over. We've like reached an agreement. And, the Oretians have been pardoned. They can stay at Basgiath, but the Flyers can't. And then Xaden got his title back, but he's not excited about it.
I always wanted to marry a duke or a prince or a king, whatever. So the fact that Xaden is a duke, I'm just like, yes.
Like, obviously that's exciting news, but I understand where he's coming from. It's like all his life, this poor guy has just been piled on with all this responsibility that he never asked for.
Yeah.
This whole time he's been carrying the weight of being responsible for the other marked ones. Now being this powerful rider with the power to wield shadows. Also carrying like while leading a revolution in secret. And now they gave him back his title, but he's venin, so he doesn't feel like he's worthy of that, Yep. So poor Xaden, he's just this dude cannot win. I feel so bad for him, like constantly.
I know.
But I thought it was hilarious when Brennan was telling her that, yeah, sorry, like we couldn't get the Flyers to stay because the Navarians wouldn't allow us to alter the Wardstone. She did not react to that, but Mira caught on instantly that she didn't react to that because that just means they're going to do Plan B.
Ooh, Plan B.
Yeah.
Cannot wait to get into that. So, with tensions rising on all fronts inside Biscayeth, in their relationships, and in the larger war, the group is on the edge of open rebellion. And by morning, Violet knows she'll be a traitor. Cannot wait to read and get more into these chapters.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, all right. So now that's the end of our deep dive. We're going to discuss some of our predictions and final thoughts as we wrap up this episode. I'll get us started off here. I don't really have predictions maybe for the next section that we're going to read. I have predictions overall for the book because I think there are several recurring themes that we're noticing here in these first chapters. One is the mention of Violet's hair. Violet's hair is mentioned a lot. I feel like proportionately to like we're only in chapter 6. So has she been not touched by an angel but touched by a venin like at some point to where it has drained her a little bit, and maybe that's why, like we discussed that in a previous episode, right, where maybe that something happened in the past and now that's why maybe she is sick the way she is, and her hair is silver. So I think I have a prediction that may play into Xaden's cure later on, because maybe she has some venin blood in her, and maybe that's like an antidote or something like that. So that's one prediction I have. Another thing that stood out to me, maybe not necessarily it's a prediction of Violet's second signet, because there's a moment in chapter 4 where they discuss a memory that they shared together through their bond, and that's kind of like the first time, or maybe not the first time, but it's a rare occurrence that's happened between them before.
Yeah.
And
that happened one time while they were in battle brief. Like she
yes,
surprised him with another intimate memory between the two of
right.
them.
So I picked up on that, and I was like, oh, that's giving a little bit of an intrinsic energy. So yeah, I was yeah. So those are my predictions overall for where the book may be heading.
I mean, that is a powerful signet, and Adarna is such a rare breed that her second signet has to be powerful. So, very interesting, Ethan. I'm still stuck on the fact that like they started with the bang with Andarna and her talking about her magic and her scales, and with the fact that she can alter the way that her magic feels with the change of her colors. And so we kind of briefly already talked on that. So I know that has a huge significance. So like, I cannot wait to read more about that. My, my prediction going into these next, like really the book, but the next few chapters really is like Xaden's lost of control. So yes, he, lost a little bit of control with Violet in the bedroom. And I just have a feeling that's not going to be the first time this happens. And I feel like the more it happens, the more he's going to kind of retreat into himself. And I think it's going to be like an Edward and Bella type situation that happened in Inmu, where like Edward knew he was like a threat to Bella, and so he left her. And so
Listen, as long as she doesn't like completely become inhuman and just like not participate in life after this,
And just
I don't see Violet doing that.
Yeah.
I don't see Violet doing that. I never liked
no,
them,
no,
so
she would
whatever.
never.
But
I think that would just activate her more, which I appreciate.
Yes, I think it would put her more into like a panic mode that she needs to find the cure. But I just kind of see Xaden kind of retreating into himself and like saying, I'm a danger. I need to save the person that I love. Let's push her away. Let's, whatever. Let's break up. That's what I think. Those are my predictions. Of course, I really, really hope I am wrong. That's just kind of what I'm picking up just from these first few chapters.
Yeah. I'm also worried about Xaden, y'all. Like, I think it is going to get worse before there's any resolution. I don't know if this is going to be resolved in this book because there's still 2 more books. So I'm really worried about that. But I'm really glad that Violet is so determined to find this cure, to find the 7th. And like, this is just something that I've been waiting to see from her. Like, her supporting Xaden no matter what and not giving up on him no matter what. He's really going to need that from her in this book and probably beyond this book, unfortunately, I think. And I don't know, I really don't want to accept this, but I can kind of see there not being a cure and maybe she decides to turn eventually.
That would explain why every introduction to the book is written by Jasenia.
I know. I know.
All right. Well, that is this episode, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Please interact with us in the comments on social media. We want to discuss with you all, especially now that we're in Onyx Storm and we're reading it with you all. We're really excited to get some conversation started. Next episode is going to be chapters 7 through 12 in Onyx Storm. So please be sure to read those and prepare for a good discussion for the next set of chapters.
Just when Violet thinks she has a grasp on the chaos around her, the storm only grows darker. Secrets unravel, loyalties are tested, and the line between friend and the enemy blurs even further. As tensions rise and the stakes reach new heights, can Violet hold on to the truth, or will the forces working against her finally break her resolve? Join us next episode as we dive into chapters 7 through 12 of Onyx Storm and uncover the twist that have us questioning everything.
That's a wrap for Books Between Friends today. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next chapter.